together with us here. We have Anna, who's in Mexico City.
Anna.
And
Hi, nice to see you.
Very nice to see you again, Anna.
we have Mira, who's in Uganda right now, and I think she'll get her camera to turn on perhaps briefly. Thank you, Mira.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Hello, Nida.
Hello.
Thank you, Mira.
Glad to be a part of this conversation.
We're so delighted to have you here, Mira. Thank you so much. We also have Camila here. Hey, Camila.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. Nice to see you all again.
Hi, Camila.
Hello, it's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Camila. It's so great to see you. Thank you so much. We also have Vanessa. Vanessa, just wave so we can.
Hello, thank you, Her Excellency, for joining us. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Drisha.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, it's nice to have you today. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Drisha. Hi.
Oh, we also have another Anna. Anna. Hey, Anna.
Hello, it's really nice to meet you.
Hi, Anna.
And we have Komal. Hey, Komal.
Hello, ma'am. It's really nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Komal.
And Dr. Norma.
Hello, Mami. Good morning. Nice to see you. I'm Norma from Mexico City.
Hi, Norma. Very nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we've got a little representation from Asia, Latin America, and Africa, and the family that we're together with here today, of which you're a very precious part, is actively engaged in leading action on the ground and mobilizing youth. And we are really, really excited, deeply humbled, and honored to have this time with you. And I'd like to start by conveying a very warm welcome. And Mami, thank you so much for being here with us. We're so excited. And I'd like to also warmly welcome the POP family, the rest of the POP family that joins us here to the POP Climate Leadership Conversations, a tribute to our chief mentor. This project aims to strengthen youth leadership and explore tactics that empower the youth to take action and tackle the most pressing environmental issues faced globally. We are conducting a series of conversations on leadership strategies, recommendations, reflections, and examples, each focused on global leadership and a different pressing environmental issue. This initiative is designed and implemented as a tribute to our chief mentor, late Dr. R. Hitotsubashi. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Her Excellency Ms. Mami Mizutori, Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction, about leadership toward creating a resilient society. A very warm welcome and much gratitude on behalf of the entire POP family. Mami, thank you so much once again for being together with us here today.
Thank you very much for allowing me to be with you. Hello, Ash. Hello, POP family, and great to have this exchange of views again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will now go ahead and introduce our speaker for the day. Mami Mizutori is the Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction and head of the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, based in Geneva, Switzerland. She assumed her role on March 1st, 2018. Mami served for 27 years in various capacities in the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Prior to joining the UN, Mami was Executive Director of the Sainsbury Institute for the study of Japanese arts and cultures, University of East Anglia, UK, since 2011. Mami graduated in law from Hitotsubashi University, Tokyo, and obtained a diploma in international studies from the Diplomatic School of Spain. A Japanese national, Ms. Mizutori speaks Japanese, English, and Spanish. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We're very excited about this conversation, and I will hand it over back to Ash, who will be making our first question for the day.
Thank you, Anna, for your kind introduction.
Thank you so much, Mami. Anna, thank you very much. To get us started, we're very excited to seek your insight on the issue of leadership, particularly in the realm of resilience. And we'd love to hear your thoughts about what this really means, and particularly what the implications would be for youth, please.
Thank you, Ash, for the question. So yes, we're talking about leadership in making a resilient society today. So when we think about leadership, what you need is first, as you mentioned at the outset, Ash, you need to understand what are the pressing issues that you are facing in your city, in your town, in your country, but beyond, globally. And you need to have a vision on how you can tackle that challenge. And you have to make a plan, but not any simple plan, a very bold plan, a course of action on how to tackle the challenge. In the context of today, building a resilient society, we need to understand, and I think many of you do, many of you, especially the youth, understand that there are some existential threats that we are facing and which are hampering ourselves from becoming resilient. So that is the first thing that we need for leadership. And then when you make your plan, it's very important to base your plan and course of action on science and evidence. You know, we are living in an age where there is so much information about everything. But let's be very, very attentive and think about what is the science telling us and what are the evidence. I would say that importantly, leaders need to be resilient themselves because challenges are big. The road to tackle climate emergency, the pandemic issue, it's not an easy thing to do. It's a very bumpy road. It's a long road. It's a long journey. So you need to be resilient. And I would say that leadership means to be both realistic and optimistic. Because in order to be resilient throughout that long journey, you need to have that optimism that you are believing in the right thing, you are going towards the right direction, you will not give up, and at one point, you will reach your goal. So I think those are what I would say the elements very important to be a leader for building a resilient society. And the last thing I would say is that leadership, being a leader doesn't mean that you need to be a politician or you need to be working at the United Nations. You can be a leader wherever you are, in your school, in your classroom, in your neighborhood, in your community, and even in your family. And I think that's the essence of leadership. You can be a leader wherever you are. And when you aspire to be a leader where you are, you will become a leader. Over to you, Ash.
That's absolutely fantastic, and what a beautiful message to all of us here, and to many I know who are listening. You know, I think that's a really important thing, because I think all of us have the ability to affect change, to build you know, societies so that they're resilient, to be practical and at the same time optimistic. But we can do it within the realm of our own you know, arenas, school, university, neighborhoods, homes, everything. And I think that's really important, because that's where we really start to practice it. And I just want to thank you. That's a very, very important message. And yeah, we take that to heart, and we definitely want to to practice this, because our sincere attempt is to make a change which is positive on the ground and in our homes and in our societies. And I believe that your message is very important, because we all have the potential to do it if we make up our minds, and we have that will to do it. So thank you very, very much for that message. Thank you, Mami. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really like that message. You said that we can be leaders wherever we are. Thank you so much. And now I would like to hand it over to Mida, who is in Uganda and will be making the next question. I don't know if Mira can hear us. Let's see. Well, if not, we can go to Ana Carrillo first, and then we'll go to Mira.
Mira's back.
Okay, thank you, Anna.
All right.
So I think Mira spoke, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you want, we can let Mira go first then, and you can go second.
Okay.
Thank you, Anna.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Anna. I'm sorry I was on mute, and thank you so much, Your Excellency, for that amazing response. I would like to go straight away to my question. Much of the world is now experiencing the consequences of climate change, and extreme weather events are likely to get much worse. What type of leadership is needed to fully implement disaster risk reduction policies and become a more resilient society?
Well, thank you, Mida, very much for that question. So some of you may have heard that the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, said that we are on the edge of the abyss, with global heating up to 1.2 degrees already, above pre-industrial term temperatures. And we are within touching distance, scary, of the 1.5 degree limit set by the Paris Agreement. And the impact of this is being felt everywhere. In the last 20 years, the extreme weather events, cyclones, storms, floods, they have doubled in number. And if you look at last year alone, the number of floods and storms have roughly been up by 20%. And this is while the whole world has been attacked by COVID-19. Just today, some of you may have heard that in the state of Gujarat in India, where they are struggling so much with COVID-19, a very, very powerful cyclone made landfall. This is the world where we're living in, a world where it is a multi-hazard place, where the landscape of risk is very complex because of the climate emergency that you mentioned, Meda. So what does it take to implement disaster risk reduction policies, which are policies for prevention, and become resilient? Now, the good news is that there is already a global plan for this, or I should say several plans. In the year 2015, all the governments, your governments, they agreed to a set of global agreements, starting with the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, which is the framework for resilience. And then they adopted the Agenda 2030, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and then the Paris Agreement. So we do have a global plan that, I repeat, all member states, all of your governments said, let's do it. So that's very important. And if I may talk a bit about Sendai Framework, because Meda, you asked me about how to fully implement disaster risk reduction policies. This is the global blueprint for reducing the impact of disasters, reducing the number of people who will die because of disasters, who are affected by disasters, the economic loss by disasters. And this is something that we all need to really do, because actually 90% of the disasters that we are experiencing during the past 20 years are actually due to climate climate emergency. And the Sendai framework says we need to accomplish these 7 global targets in order to reduce the impact of disasters. And in order to do that, the Sendai framework talks about 4 priorities of action, which are: 1, let's understand what is the nature of risk that surrounds us. Number 2, let's strengthen risk governance. And this means to have a plan. This is very important. You asked me what are the policies we need to do. We need to have a plan for better prevention, because a failure to plan is a plan for failure. We need a plan, and a plan is good risk governance. And we also need to invest in resilience. And I would like to say that any leader who really aspires to make disaster risk reduction a reality needs to pay attention to these 4 priorities. Importantly, the policies need to have a long-term vision, because these policies for prevention, you can't start it and end it in a short time. Even in a year, it won't happen. You need to make your infrastructure resilient. You need to make your people resilient, and that takes time. And another important thing is that you need to involve the whole society. We usually say that risk is everybody's business. It means that it's not only the government, the central, local governments, of course, but the private sector, the academia, the civil society, and the youth, of course. You are all involved. And if we don't mobilize the whole of society, it's really not possible to implement disaster risk reduction policies fully. Now, the third point I would make is that you need to make sure that the vulnerable people are protected by these policies, because we all know that in times of disaster, the vulnerable people, girls and women, people living with disability, senior citizens, these are the people who suffer most. But it's not enough to just protect them. We need to make them part of the solution. Their voices need to be heard, and they have to be part of the policy so that they themselves can implement policies for resilience. And I would say that in order to really make a society resilient, you really need to empower every member of the society. The society is not an abstract thing. A society is made up of people. And if the components of the society, ourselves, if we are not resilient, then we are not a resilient society. My last point about disaster risk reduction policies, prevention policies, is something that I heard the other day, which I thought was very important. This person, a scientist who has been working on Ebola and many epidemics in Africa, said, there's a problem about prevention because the issue is there is the no glory of prevention issue. What does it mean? Wow. If you prevent a disaster from happening, you may not be noticed. The better you do your job, the least you are noticed. If you are responding after a disaster, after a lot of people are affected, after a lot of houses are washed away by a storm or flood, then you are seen of being helpful. But if you fail in prevention, then there is the no glory. So sadly, a lot of politicians don't do it because they are operating in a rather shorter cycle of their election, right? And they want to be seen as doing something useful during the 3 years, 4 years, 5 years of their term. No, real politicians need to look at 10 years, 20 years, 2030, the year 2050, and make sure that the future generations, when you become the leaders, that you have a place where you can govern safely. So I would say that the no glory of prevention has to be overcome, and that's real leadership. So I'll stop here, but thank you very much for that question, Mida.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for the tremendous response. And I really do hope that the implementation of the project gets to grassroots levels of the member states, because we do believe if it's just done at the central point of the government, it's not going to bring any cause of impact. So it's really an amazing way forward, and we look forward to seeing it happening. Thank you. I yield the floor to Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mira, for the great question and Mami for the great answer. I will now like to hand it over to Ana Carrillo, who's in Mexico, and who will be asking the next question.
Thank you, Anne. So my question is, small islands and little developed countries are likely to experience the worst consequences, even though they have the smallest carbon footprint. Can this be taken into account while drafting policies for disaster risk reduction? If so, how?
Well, thank you very much, Anna, for your great question. So this is the tragedy of climate emergency. As you said, the countries which least contributed to making this happen are the most affected. The small island developing states, the least developed countries, the landlocked developing countries. These are countries which are suffering from the impact of climate emergency, and some are facing existential threat, like the small island states. Some know that their whole state might be immersed in water. And so there are actually plans to immigrate the whole country. This is terrible, right? And I would like to draw your attention here to the fact that, yes, in order to avoid that these countries which really contributed the least to this issue are most impacted, we need to enhance international cooperation. We need to enhance international cooperation for disaster risk reduction and for prevention. And this is one of the 7 global targets that I mentioned before of the Sendai framework. We need to specifically enhance our international cooperation for this. The 13th of October every year is what we call the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. And this year, as a global campaign, my organization, the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, we will be focusing on this target. Let's enhance international cooperation for disaster risk reduction. So my request, my call to all of you listening to this YouTube, watching this YouTube, is to mark the day and do something in your city, in your community, to help enhance international cooperation. Now, what I would like to say is that why do we need to do it? It seems so obvious, but why is it not happening? It has to happen because, as we know, disasters undermine development more than anything. And these countries which have already scarce resources, if they don't get enough international cooperation to have better measures in place for prevention, if they don't have enough funds to build the capacity of their people to have a plan that I mentioned. Remember, I said that we all need to have a plan for risk governance. Then the Sustainable Development Goals will never be achieved by these countries. One very concrete way of helping these countries is to enhance early warning and early action. Now, let me give you an example. In 1970, in Bangladesh, a super cyclone hit the country. It's not well known actually how many people perished, but the figure is something between 300,000 and 1 million in one blow, right? But what the Bangladeshi government did after this is that they made a policy for early warning. So a network of detecting when these cyclones will come and sharing the information as quickly as possible to the people. But they also did education programs for early action, because sometimes the problem is people really don't listen to the warnings. They think, okay, it's going to be okay. They don't evacuate, or even if they feel they need to evacuate, they don't want to leave their house. They don't want to leave their livelihood. So early action needs to be combined with early action that, yes, you need to evacuate. And so Bangladeshi started this policy. And 2 years ago, when another cyclone as strong as the one that hit the country in 1970 hit Bangladesh again, this time only 19 people died. Now, 19 lives were lost, But if you compare it to 1970, 300,000 to 1 million people, this is a really important achievement. But we also need to acknowledge that the economic loss is still great. Lives are saved more, but the economic loss by these cyclones, whether it's in Bangladesh or whether it's in India or Myanmar, it's a lot. So we need to really tackle the root cause of these extreme weather events, which is climate emergency. My organization, the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, we do a lot with governments and other UN system agencies for early warning and early action. We work, for example, with public broadcasting unions so that they give accurate information about early warning, but they also help to educate the people about the need to take early action. So these are some things that we can do in order to support SIDS, the LDCs, but let's remember they need more international cooperation. And by the way, the Paris Agreement, it's written in there that every year, $100 billion will be provided to developing countries for climate action. And this promise, which is a legal promise, has not been kept. So we really do need to do it. So I'll stop here. And I hope that on the 13th of October this year, we can work with the POP family in order to enhance this important message of let's enhance international cooperation. We need your voice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's really important knowing about this International Day. And also, it's really important the point that you mentioned about taking action before it happens, because it can really make a difference. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would now like to hand it over to Camila Gonzalez, who will be asking the next question. She's in Mexico as well.
Thank you so much, Anna. どうぞよろしくお願いします。来てくれてありがとうございます、マミ様。I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here. My question here is, what role has disaster risk reduction played during the pandemic, and how has it exacerbated systemic risks? As well as what is the importance of looking into disaster risk reduction from both a local and a global point of view, and how should this be done? Thank you.
Camila, thank you very much. And thank you for kindly greeting me in Japanese. Beautifully mentioned. Thank you. So your question is very important. And the first part of your question, what role has disaster risk reduction played during the pandemic? Now, here is the bad news, because the somber reality is that disaster risk reduction prevention did not play the role it should have played. What I mean is that I mentioned that in 2015, it was actually March when the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction was adopted by all member states of the United Nations. The countries which had experienced Ebola in Africa, SARS, MERS in Asia, they pressed to include biological hazard into the Sendai Framework, because there was a very, very strong notion among these member states and also WHO that pandemic is going to be the next big challenge, right? There was a recognition that if we don't take on this challenge, the biological hazard, the tiny virus, will become an epidemic, a pandemic. Well, good news is that we put it in the Sendai Framework, but unfortunately, member states didn't do enough to take preventive measures. And look where we are now, right? We are now in the middle of COVID-19, which is actually a textbook case of what we call systemic risk. What is systemic risk? Systemic risk is a situation when one risk leads to another. COVID-19 started as a public health crisis, but now it is not only a tremendous public health crisis, but a socio-economic crisis, which is plundering so many countries into the abyss of economic regression and poverty, hunger. This is where we are right now. So as I mentioned, the somber reality is that we did not do enough. But the silver lining, as we say, is that there is now much more awareness among not only the governments, but the people on the street that we need to do better to prevent and be prepared for these things, right? So now is a big moment when we need to together push for more preventive actions to take that need to be taken, because unfortunately, this is not going to be the last pandemic. We know that there is a lot of concern about the next pandemic and the next one if we don't take preventive measures. So that's one thing that I would mention. The other thing is that we need to understand, going back to your question about what is the importance of looking into disaster risk reduction from both local and global point of view. COVID-19 has shown us how much the local community suffers with disaster. It's always been the case, right? That the local government, the communities are at the front line of responding to disasters. But this time, unfortunately, in some countries where the central government didn't take enough measures to even respond to the COVID-19 crisis, the local governments had to really up their game. And we're seeing this happening all over the world. The importance of local resilience. I mentioned that each member of the society needs to be empowered and become resilient, but the fact that the local communities, the local cities, the local government has to be resilient is now really highlighted during this COVID-19. Now, we are embarking on a campaign, which is called the Making City Resilient 2030 campaign. It started this year, and this is about working with cities so that they become resilient, making sure that they have their plan for resilience, making sure that they have budget for resilience, making sure that they also receive international cooperation for resilience, making sure that the city's infrastructures are resilient. We have this campaign that will run to 2030. And this is, I think, quite important for the young people too, because you can look at what your own city is doing, right? And what your own mayor is doing, and see if you can help there, if you can be part of that resilience making in your local city. So I again, request you to look at MCR 2030, Making City Resilient 2030, and see if in your city you can join it, or if your city hasn't joined it yet, if you can start the movement for your city to join the MCR 2030. My final point is, Camila, is that we need to do this in solidarity, all of this, right? One of the things that the Secretary General has been repeatedly mentioning is that there is not enough solidarity right now in this world. We have the climate emergency, we have the COVID-19, and we don't have the solidarity in the international community to work together. And I see that the youth, you guys are together, aren't you? Some of you are in Mexico, some of you are in Africa, but you are, no matter where you are, your group called the youth, your group, which is going to be the leaders of the next generation, are really coming together and making your voice heard. And we will listening more and more to your voice. So we need you, we need to work with you in solidarity so that really, we can get out from this COVID-19 crisis as soon as possible and prevent so that this doesn't have a replay. Thank you, Camila.
Thank you so very much. It's, as you said, solidarity is absolutely a key word in managing this crisis, not just the COVID-19 pandemic, but as well as the climate crisis. So thank you so very much for your comment. Thank you. I'll give the word back to Anna.
Thank you, Camila.
Thank you so much. This was a great question and also a great answer. Talking about local resilience was very interesting. I would now like to hand it over to Ash to further some final remarks, and we can go back to the youth to see if they have any additional questions.
Thank you so much, Mami. I just want to say that, there's so much we've taken away from the important discussion here today. And you've underscored the issue of the pandemic, the fact that we're in an era of pandemics, and also, of course, the climate emergency. The most vulnerable communities are typically those that are the ones to bear the brunt. Of course, globally we are facing this issue, but I think you brought up so many important things, which is the issue of preparedness, coming together, the solidarity, and also working with many different communities in different parts of the world. And we can't possibly be thinking of sustainable cities and societies that are resilient if you're going to leave people behind. And like you said, I mean, we're losing our land to the ocean and to the water, and people are having to evacuate and move. And so it's really important that we do this, and we do this with sensitivity and the real coming together. And I think, you've left us a lot to think about, because it's not something even that we're talking about in some distant future. We're already living through all of this. And I think it's crucial. I do want to say that we will work together with you on the partnership element for October and beyond and before, as well as the MCR 2030. And we feel strongly about this. I also want to say that we are planning the pop festival, and this time what we are trying to do and seeking input and guidance and advice from based on your wisdom and your perspective and experience, which is so crucial and invaluable. So we're really this year looking to bring in young people and partnerships from regions specifically as well. I mean, there is the global element, and there's no leaving that out, but we want to be able to build up more momentum on the ground. And so we're looking specifically at the Caribbean and Latin America and Africa and the Middle East and Asia and South Asia and the Pacific and so on. And this is with the intention of really strengthening the partnerships on the ground, but also to be able to build up the momentum and the capacities. And we'd love your thoughts, just as we do this, because we'd love to be able to take away a few things. I mean, I've been listening in the news, for example, of what's happening in Australia with the mice infestation, where, in Eastern Australia, I mean, people are being bitten by mice, and their produce is lost, and their carpets of mice. And, and this is another outcome of what's happening with, and who knows what's going to come with this in terms of public health implications. I mean, we know something, but we dread it, and such. And this is also a consequence of the fact that, their predators have been eliminated, habitats have been eliminated, and these are the kinds of things. So I'd love your guidance on, some of the important things that we can take away and really bring to practice, because there are a lot of young people who have that real drive, and we'd love to be able to support this on the ground. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on what we can sort of set out as some really strong concrete goals, especially as we mobilize we think millions in the course of the next few months during the course of the festival and beyond.
Thank you, Ash. First of all, I'd like to say that you really inspire me, you and your everybody, because I speak at a lot of events, but I can feel that all of you really take these issues to heart and really think about these challenges as your challenge that you need to overcome. So you inspire us, not only me, but the whole UN system. As you kindly asked for my guidance, our guidance, but we'd like to ask you for your guidance. You have to tell us, that we have to up our game, what we need to do. Listening to you, I really think that, one important agenda that really encompasses all that we've talking about, whether it's the climate emergency, whether it's the COVID-19 or other issues, is how can we make peace with our planet, right? We talk about there is no planet B, but actually we are acting as though we don't know that. There is a war going on between human beings and the planet and all the species that are living on the planet. And the consequence that we are seeing is because of this. So we really need to have a new social compact with the planet so that we can continue living on this planet for not only decades or centuries, but millions of years. And I think really we're coming to this point where if we do not change the way that we live, that we treat our planet, we are in real danger. And that, I think, the young people, you will understand it better than us. There's a lot of richness in the way that you think about how you want to conduct your own lives, what you want to eat, how you want to live. And that, I think, is very important. And that's where we start. But it needs to also be reaching the macro policies as well. So I would really say that towards thinking about what you want to do at your festival, what you want to talk about, the issue about people and planet, how we have a new renewed social compact is very important. And I think, that's what we need to do, not in a few years, but now.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to say how humbled and honored we are. And we've really taken your messages to heart, the collective and making a change on the ground. And we're going to certainly, utilize any opportunity and every opportunity and create opportunities where there are none to strengthen the resolve of youth and also the capacities and understanding about this issue, as you brought up very rightly so, that we have to use science as the fundamental starting point and the basis of every action. And yes, you're right, we don't have a planet B, and this isn't about something in some distant future. It's here now, and it is about our present and future, collectively speaking. And so I just want to really thank you, and would love to continue to seek your guidance, to keep you informed as we progress, if we may, please. We have a lot of youth, many of whom, we have some of whom we have here in the room, but many others who are really working in their communities and neighborhoods, and we want to be able to continue to inspire them. And I know your message is pivotal in making that happen. And certainly for all things in October, and like I said before and beyond, we will work together to make sure we're able to lend all strength and solidarity to making that happen. So this has been absolutely invaluable. I want to thank you sincerely, and I'll hand back to Anna, if I may, to open up to a few more comments or thoughts among the family here, please.
Thank you so much, Ash, and thank you so much, Mami. I really learned so much from these past 45 minutes. From each question you answered something so interesting. And for example, I didn't know about the Sendai framework and how this could have really helped, for example, in the pandemic and different situations that we're facing now. So I've really learned a lot in this past, in this conversation that we've had. And I wanted to see if anyone else from the youth had any other questions that they wanted to ask, anything else they wanted to add. Camila, Anna, Komal, Drisha, Mida, or Vanessa. You're more than welcome to add anything.
I do have a little question, if I have the permission to ask. Thank you so much. Right now, we're in this conversation, as the same as Anna, I have been learning a lot. And right now it came up to my mind, how do you think we can create more opportunities for young people to be on places for decision making? Right now, we know that there's a lot of movements of young people. So how do you think we can create some strategies so young people can be on the high level decisions?
So that's a very important question, Vanessa, because we need to make sure that we are not involving young people as a token group, right? Your voices need to be heard. We're looking at it in the UN system, how better we can involve you, not only bringing you into panels where you it's important that you come to panels, but and say what you need to say, but importantly into the decision making. So I can assure you that that's something that we're really looking into at the UN. The other thing I would say is that I would say that there might be a lot of opportunities in your community where you live to make your voice not only heard, but make it become a policy. I know that politicians, and especially young politicians, are always looking for young people to come in to work as their interns or come in to be part of their group. And I would encourage you to go out there and look for these opportunities and make yourself part of the political movement. I mean, that's democracy, isn't it? I mentioned that all the governments agreed to the Sendai framework, to the Paris Agreement, and then to the Agenda 2030, the SDGs. But it's up to us, isn't it, as citizens, to see if our representatives, whether at the central level or at the local level, are really, implementing this. So I think, that's one really concrete way to see if your voice can be translated into action.
Yeah, that's a great point, and thank you so much, Mami. I know that in a local way and also in a national way, right now there are a lot of opportunities. So I think it's a good time to watch them and to start creating that action that we need. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question, Vanessa.
Thank you so much. And now I see Mira with her hand up, so maybe she can participate next.
Okay, thank you so much, Anna, for yielding the floor to me. And then I would simply want to make a comment and then ask a question. First, I would really, in terms of the program that it is, but I would repeat to say that if it were possible for it to endeavor that it does not stop at the central government level of the member states, but it should be taken into the decentralized system to the local levels, grassroots levels. And if it were possible for you to present a strategy of implementation to that level as well, it would be great. And then I would like to ask you on something to do with youth projects or programs. So many youth have projects that are actually or would more of like successfully address most of the problems you are having. But with the few I have interacted with, they are literally still seated in their projects. The reason being is most of them think that in order for you to start a project, you need to have the money in it. So I just got to realize something to do with the 3 T's, which is time, talent, and treasure. So is there any way the UN could put up some sort of curriculum on more of empowering? Okay, yeah, you're already empowering youth, but making them realize the other side of implementation of projects other than just the presence of certain funds, or make the, as Dr. Ash talked earlier on, the inspiration. What kind of strategy are you putting in place in order for them to, gain that inspiration to bring the projects on the ground?
Okay, so thank you, Meda, for that comment and the question. So we do actually have a action program to work with the youth. We have a group of young people who are very vocal about disaster risk reduction policies. And they come to our conferences. We have regional conferences this year in between November, mainly. We will have regional conferences in all regions. And unfortunately, we still might have to have virtual conferences this year, so it's not as exciting as it used to be, but we do bring in young people to the panels to represent the youth. That's one thing we do. I also give quite a few talks at universities, not only in the global north, but global south, importantly. And there I talk with students who are already studying about resilience, disaster risk reduction, or even like meteorology, which is quite related to our theme. And what I do is that I focus on the importance that I talked about science and evidence, but the young people becoming the ones who produce the evidence in science around disaster risk reduction and resilience. That's another thing that I do. And my dream is that, I want to see if we can make resilience, disaster risk reduction a career path, right? In 1970s, environment or green wasn't yet a career or a job. But now when you think about it, there are so many careers and jobs related to green, right? Whether it's about green energy, whether it's about green food. And so I would like to see if we can make resilience commodity, resilience a career path, so that young people who are not only interested and want to promote resilience can work for resilience and make a living out of it. So Meda, that's one thing that I'm trying to aspire. And today with your words, time, talent, and treasure, I'd like to focus more on that. But in the meantime, we welcome young people to our regional and global conferences, and we have a group for disaster risk reduction, young people.
Thank you so much. That was an excellent answer. Oh, go ahead, Mira. I think your microphone was off. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for that amazing response. And yeah, I really do believe that with time, everything actually gets changed, or at least everything tries to get in line, so that at some point, young people are able to come up and, try to scale up one way or another, confidently. And along the way, they will be able to, cite out what exactly they need. Yes.
Thank you, Meda.
I yield the floor back to Anna.
Thank you so much, Mela. That was a great question, and thank you for your answer, Mami. Drisha Patak from the Pop Movement would also like to make a question.
Thank you, Anna. So I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm very curious to know this, that what was it like as a global leader to experience in the first few months of the pandemic when it actually started? And how much do you think we are ready to accept and are prepared for something similar in future as a direct impact of climate change, which has a huge impact and a global impact?
Thank you for that very important question, Jerisha. Yeah, I mean, your question takes me back to March last year, when things very quickly started to deteriorate. If I'm very honest with you, the first reaction was, okay, what can we do here? Because all of a sudden, the way that we work, the way that we live was changed. But then the second thing was that, especially because my organization, we work for prevention and resilience, we realized that now is the time that we really need to work in support of the people who are living through this crisis. So we put together strategies we put together guidance on how to, I mentioned about you need to have a plan for resilience, but many countries didn't have a plan for biological hazards. So we supported countries to put that into their plans. And we also supported not only governments, but all stakeholders to come together and discuss, what their challenges were and try to find collective solutions to it. So we did have a lot of webinars, and it was challenging at the beginning, but we adapted the way we worked. Now, I do feel that, we all tried our best, but I don't think we have done our best yet. And trying to answer your question, are we ready to really, think more profoundly and take on the challenge of climate crisis? I do feel that, even during the past year, a lot has changed, at least in the political will of countries. There are much more countries which have come forward to make bold commitments about net zero emission of greenhouse gas, whether it's by 2045 or 2050, 2060. And it starts from there, right? You need a political leader who says that. Now, of course, the devil is in the details. What are the plans going to look like? A lot of countries are still struggling to come up with that plan. And the other day, I know that, the American government also, they acknowledged that, yes, 50% of the technology that we need to reach these goals is still to be invented. So there's a big challenge, but I think the political will is there. Now is the time that we need to design our actions so that they can meet the plan. So I think we are getting there, but we're not quick enough. And again, there's still a big divide between the global north and the global south. We do need to really enhance the international cooperation, because the truth is, while we try to mitigate greenhouse gas, the impact is becoming so frequent and intense that that you see these countries that are suffering constantly, and the impact that they have on people, right? So we do need to really, enhance our solidarity. We need to speed up our policies, and we need to really create more solidarity. So probably my blunt answer to your question is we're not really there yet, but what can we do? We can't give up, right? And we need them to really up again.
Thank you so much. I think your answer gave us a hope and a push also, that the last sentence that you said, you can't give up. So I think that is the most important thing. And thank you so much for sharing the initial experience and also throwing some light on what will be the future if something like this comes up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sorry. I just want to say, I think that, I think you shared a very important thing, which is that, yes, we have global leaders, and and there's leadership at many different levels. we have to really strengthen leadership at many levels and create that collective movement, and we will see your dreams come true, and I think that those are the dreams that we all need to share. And this is exactly the direction we need to move in. And you brought up the point that it's the glory of sort of serving to deal with an issue once the issue is manifested versus the prevention of it, and the attention and obviously the optics of it prior, in terms of the prevention. But I think we all have a responsibility toward voting in our leaders, asking those questions. You have sort of pushed us to think about those issues, and I think we need to internalize those messages and see, we all have a role to play. It's very easy to pick up and point a finger, but we all have a part to play in this, and we also accountable for the leadership we bring in. So I just think those are really important things for us to walk away with, and like you said, this is something that should become a part of our lives in the way that there's opportunity around resilience and dealing with resilience and building and strengthening resilience, and we should fast track that as much as we can, because the whole issue of the manifestation of the impacts, like you said, of climate change and others are here. Yeah. While we're talking about mitigation too. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ash. Thank you very much, Pop family, and keep on pushing us, right?
Thank you so much. Would you mind if we got a picture together before we closed, if that's okay, please?
Let's do it.
Thank you. All right, Mira, can you get that camera on if it's working, please? Thank you. All right, I've got that, and I'm going to share it with you as well. Thank you ever so much. This has been so precious, absolutely invaluable, and we're together in this, and the solidarity is there all the way, and we're really looking forward to working together. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mami. Thank you.
Please all stay safe and well, and see you again.